St. Patty's Day, talking about how to get lucky with local SEO. I'm here with Danielle and Jamie.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
And I hope everybody's doing great today on St. Patty's Day and you're wearing your green. I unfortunately forgot today. I wore green yesterday, the day early. Jamie, you're looking all green today? Danielle, you don't have any green on. All right. So today, guys, we're going to talk about local SEO, and we're going to talk about why it's so important, why you have to pay attention to it, and how to do it. It's pretty simple. We prepared a nice presentation for you about this topic, and the same rules apply as usual. If you have any questions, if you want to just put them in the little question box there on your control panel, then we will answer them as soon as we can during the presentation or after the presentation. If we don't get to it, if we get too many questions, we'll follow up with you. And then, of course, when we're all done, this webinar will be available online for you to review later or listen to later, along with going through the PowerPoint presentation, which is chock full of good stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. So Danielle, why don't you tell us how to get lucky with local SEO?
All right, well, first of all, let's talk about what we're going to learn today. We're going to have a refresher on the Foster Web Marketing 10 Marketing Commandments, because this webinar is all about commandment number 3, which is thou shalt optimize your local search and niche directories. So this is pretty low on the list at number 3, which means it's important. We're going to talk about why local search matters to you, what listings to optimize and how, and we've also included some niche directories, so for law firms and doctors, we'll cover some specifics, and then some paid directories to consider, and of course how often you should be doing all of this work. So just real quick, here are 10 marketing commandments, and in January we covered the first one, which was having an overall vision, goals, and strategy. Last month in February we talked about updating your website on a regular basis. And this month, as we said, we're doing local search and niche directories, which means, drum roll, in April we will be talking about how to create a sustainable review strategy. And each month we'll continue down this list. And this list is in order of importance. So as you're working on your web marketing, you can take a look at this list for reference and make sure that you always start with your vision, your goals, and your strategy, and then you build from there.
And this is the list we go by when we're helping our own clients market themselves and what we do. Right, Danielle?
Absolutely.
So we're teaching you what we do. Right, Jamie?
That's right. It's interesting because it parallels sort of the way you build a business in general, right?
Yeah.
You need to build it up first and then begin branching out, and that's where we are now in step 3. You've taken care of everything in-house, and you're ready to begin promotion off-site and elsewhere.
And obviously each one of these commandments have lots of detail about how to do it right, and that's what we're going to get into each and every month. And if you want to see the first 2, they're in the webinar library, so you can watch those.
If you go to fwm.tips, T-I-P-S, that is the web address that will take you right to our webinar library.
Okay.
This slide is in here as a reminder that in our philosophy, your website is the center of all your business. So everything that you do for marketing is going to feed into your website. And you can see there on the top right, we've got your online business listings. So they do affect your website. They do connect to your website. It's part of everything you need to do in order to have healthy rankings online.
Everything flows through your website. Why does everything flow through the website, guys?
It's the centralized nexus for your entire online presence.
That's Jamie for you. Centralized nexus. I like that, buddy.
And if set up correctly, you can measure how well your marketing is doing by having trackable URLs, trackable phone numbers, chat, things like that, forms, ways that you can track how people got to you and how you can help them.
So you create your own web nexus.
Like
The
a spider.
Wexus.
Very good.
We also recommend the One True website. Again, one brand, one website, and we really touched on this in the strategy talk. And a lot of our philosophy goes to having that one website. We're not believers in having multiple websites for your one business, with some exceptions. But in general, we like to see everything aggregated in one site.
And that makes this whole next lesson that much easier to do if you have one web presence. And that's what we're talking about here today, if you have one web presence.
Yeah.
If you have multiple presences because of a variety of reasons, or if you have satellite sites and all that stuff, if you're interested in knowing what to do with them, we're here to help you. And give us a call. But this is really about having one website. Okay, so what is local search, Jamie?
Well, a local search simply is any search that has a local intent. Whether you imply that with the terms that you're actually typing into Google or the other search engines or not, and I'm just going to use Google as a stand-in for all the search engines, but if Google thinks, based on what you've provided it, that you're looking for something local, it will provide you these local results as well. If you search for something, and I think we've got this example in the next slide, but if you search, for example, pizza delivery, Google's going to assume that you're looking for pizza delivery places close to you. They're going to go ahead and assume that you're not interested in a pizza delivery place across the country, no matter how great it may be. If you're searching for delivery, they are going to default to assuming that you're looking for something local to you. And as a result, the search results that they show to you will change. I've highlighted here on this screen some visual indicators as to how you know that local search results are being served. And they're basically the Google Maps results. You can see them highlighted here. Pizza Hut comes up first. That's always going to be a big one. And you get, in addition to the pins on the map, so you can see geographically, how close you may be to whatever it is you're searching for. You also get, in addition to just the regular website search results that you're used to in an organic result, you get the name, address, phone number, and in Google's case, the rankings on Google Plus for these various businesses. Those that are highlighted here are what we mean when we say the local results. You may hear people talking about a 3-pack or a 7-pack of local results, and all that means really is how many of these local results they show on a search-by-search basis. 3 and 7 are two of the more common groups that Google will use to show.
Do you have any idea why they choose 3 or 7, Jamie?
No, I have no idea.
And this is 6.
There may have actually been a 7th here, and I probably just couldn't fit it all on one screen capture.
I think it's just that you got to know that Google is constantly testing and constantly changing to make it a better user experience for searchers. That doesn't necessarily mean that good things happen for the business as they change their algorithm all the time. And so you've got to stay on top of this stuff. That's what we do, and that's what we're talking about today, because this has changed a lot over the years, hasn't it?
It's changed a lot, and it's changed a lot even more recently, too. The way they handle these results, the way they collect this data, and the way they ultimately serve it to searchers has been shaken up quite a bit over the past year or two. The key takeaway here, though, is that the local space on the first page of search results is relatively limited. There's 10 organic search results on the first page, but at most 7, sometimes in some cases only 3 local results. So if you're striving to perform well in this local search result, and you should, the space is even more limited than it is organically.
And Jamie, real quick, why don't you tell us the difference between the organic listings and the locals, different algorithms, what's the difference here if you're trying to understand?
Well, for the longest time, it was a completely separate algorithm, and they had just sort of sliced out some real estate on the first page to provide these local results. And the local results and the organic results were completely compartmentalized, completely separate. Google's local search algorithm update last year, Hummingbird, was an initial attempt to marry those two algorithms. I'm not sure if they are 100% one and the same currently, but that's the direction Google is heading now, where your organic search results, the strength and authority of your website will inform your local results and vice versa as well. If you can demonstrate that you have solid reviews, well trusted within the community and are liked by your customers, that will inform not only your local search presence, but can in theory affect your organic presence as well.
And Jamie, I have a question. Is it easier to do local than it is to do organic?
Well, that may be a loaded question.
Aren't they all?
It's a very straightforward process to set up some of these accounts, and if all you're interested in is checking off create a Google Plus account off your to-do checklist, that's very simple, that's very straightforward. Getting the most out of these local listings, though, however, requires diligence and attention the same way any successful endeavor does.
Right, but what we have to do organically to rank is a lot more tedious and a lot more difficult and time-consuming than would you argue against this than really just doing the maintenance of what we're talking about for local?
Yeah, that sort of thing is much more straightforward, and we usually have no problems, recommending people undertake this sort of thing on their own. There's not a whole lot that you can do to shoot yourself in the foot necessarily, as long as you are being consistent and being accurate, as you always should be. But whereas some of the more traditional on-site SEO stuff has some tricky situations, a lot of gray areas where it's not always 100% clear what the correct course of action should be. With the local stuff, the setup and the maintenance is all pretty much straightforward. In a nutshell, your local presence depends on you having your business name, your address, and your phone number listed both accurately and consistently across the board, across the web.
And that's why it's number 3 in our 10 Commandments, is because it's something that you should focus on very early.
Yes.
Because it can really bring you some benefit quickly. So why is it important, Jamie?
Well, it's essential if you want to be showing up in this local pack of results. And you should be wanting to show up in the local pack of search results because, one, it's first page real estate, right? Who doesn't want to be on the first page if they can? 2, it's this sort of enhanced listing. It's not just, a link to your home page. It's got your address. It's got your phone number. If you've got great reviews, it'll show those reviews as well. People can very quickly make a snap decision based on just those star ratings that they see, as well as, with the map inlay as well, they're going to make decisions based on proximity as well. So if you're interested in generating local traffic to your website, and who isn't, especially attorneys, doctors, you're most interested generally in people local to you. This is one of the best places. Sorry, we had a bit of an echo there.
Yeah, there you go.
And you said if you have great reviews, it'll show, but if you have poor reviews, that shows as well.
It does. However, I guess a potential silver lining, if you want to call it that, is that if your reviews are so low, you may not show up in the local pack at all. So, but you do want to be very conscious of the reviews that you do have, because if you are showing up in the local pack, your reviews will be stacked up against everyone else who's showing up there also.
And you need a number of Google reviews to show up in the local. How many do you need, Jamie?
I think it's 5 minimum, and we would obviously encourage everybody to have as many as possible. They will not show the stars or the ratings if there are fewer than 5, but even 5 should be taken as a bare bones minimum. We would encourage everybody to get as many reviews as possible.
We're going to be talking about reviews next month.
April 21st.
And so, yes, they're difficult to get reviews, but they're very important. And that is an ongoing thing. It's not a one-time deal. As many of you know, you might have gotten reviews on Google before, and they'll just disappear. Nature of the business that we're in, nature of the beast. So it needs to be an ongoing event, and we'll talk more about that. April 24th, next month. Okay, so what?
21st.
21st, sorry. Okay, so what is important here? Tell me about what is important about what you need to do.
Well, I mentioned already the first page real estate, right? And that's advantageous in one of 2 ways for a lot of people. It's either an additional first page spot that you're taking up if you're already ranking well for whatever search term is in question. It's also a great way for you to gain visibility for a keyword that you're not ranking for organically. If you are a personal injury attorney in Los Angeles, one of the most competitive keyword terms and geographical locations in the country, it's going to be very difficult for you to rank organically on the first page for that term. The way you can sort of, cut a corner and get in there ahead of your competitors is to have an outstanding local listing.
And we're going to talk about how to do that. So what is this last point here? What do we mean by this?
Well, so I mentioned this sort of in passing already, but the entire goal of this endeavor to keep in mind throughout the entire process is you want consistent and accurate name, address, and phone number information. You want people to be able to contact you without trouble, no matter how they come across your information online, whether it's your website, your Google Plus profile, the Better Business Bureau, any of these other sources out there. You want to make sure that that information is accurate so they can find you. In addition to that, though, the consistency itself is taken as a sort of pseudo ranking factor as well. If Google, and again I'm using Google as a stand-in for just all the search engines, but if Google sees inconsistencies, it can confuse them, and they're not necessarily able to 100% tie your rankings to the correct profile or to point people to your website. It creates problems where there don't need to necessarily be any.
Okay, so let's talk about these problems, because what if people that are on this webinar ignore this advice and they just ignore this name, address, and phone number consistency? What are some things that can happen?
The most common side effect I would see is just sort of floundering in mediocrity. You always do pretty well, and you might even be trying hard in a lot of other areas to break onto the first page or to really enhance your web presence online, and it's just not clicking for some reason. You've tried everything and you can't figure out why. A lot of times there's some local listing inconsistencies that have been lurking beneath the surface there that have just gone undiagnosed for so long that you didn't even realize that was what was holding the site back.
And and we're going to get into this ecosystem thing in a second, but some of the things that can cause this are firm name changes, practice name changes,
address changes,
phone number, adding different doctors or different lawyers that set up their own profiles, having satellite offices, having Regis offices where you're sharing the same address and phone number. We've seen it where in Regis offices where firms are tied together in a confusing way in Google, where they're showing pictures of the wrong attorneys and da-da-da-da. We've seen so many issues with that.
Yeah, and you can't really blame them for not getting it correct 100% of the time, right? If you were just handed a phone book-sized file of names, addresses, pictures, phone numbers, and website URLs and told, okay, sort out who goes where, you probably wouldn't get 100% correct either. So these inconsistencies are just making the entire process more difficult than it needs to be. The one thing that any business owner can do to really make sure that their site is able to be found no matter how it's being looked for is to make sure that the name, address, and phone number, the NAP information, is as accurate and consistent as possible across the web.
So what are we looking at here? What is this mess that we're looking at?
This is a very convoluted, admittedly confusing visual representation of how these local citations, these local listings inform each other, where the information comes from, who's gathering information as a sort of primary source, who's going to those primary sources to populate their own databases, how the entire network sort of feeds off of itself. And it's a great way to show, one, sort of the best first places to look when looking for inconsistencies and also looking how to fix inconsistencies. But it also, I think, does a great job of illustrating just how quickly those inconsistencies can get out of hand. If you have an incorrect address in just one of those places, I mean, you just try and follow that list and see how many places it can end up before too long. And that's where the problem compounds.
It's like a virus.
Yeah.
And this is a slide from the folks at Moz Local, and I included the link down here at the bottom of the slide. And if you want some more information on local search, they have some great free resources on local search. They also have a good tool for checking inconsistent listings.
Yeah, it's a great tool. You should, everybody should take a look at it, because there may be inconsistencies that you don't even know about.
Okay, so we're throwing around the word citation. What does this mean, Jamie?
Same thing it meant in your research papers in school. It's simply a reference, and in this case we're using it to refer to a reference to either yourself or your business by either name or address, phone number. You can see on the slide that a citation for our purposes here may or may not include a link back to your business. You don't want to be concerned only with those directories and third-party sites that allow you a backlink to your website. Those are great resources, but there are many, many others that list business information without necessarily listing the link, and all of those are opportunities for you to provide correct information, but are also opportunities for inconsistencies and errors to crop up.
Very good. Okay, so what are we looking at here? These are some tools that we can use, or they can use themselves to
Yes, both of these are very simple to use. You can go to either the Moz Local tool or Yext and very quickly enter your business name, phone number, or maybe they might ask for the address as well. And they'll run a brief search across all of the major directories and show you what, if anything, is showing up for either that name.
A search across this.
Yes, not all of that necessarily, just because we're pulling from a couple different sources here, but more or less a very similar network. So Yext, for instance, shows or pulls from slightly different sources than that last slide did, but it's something very similar. And they'll show you, hey, for this address that you have listed, the business name is listed this way on site A, it's listed slightly differently here on site B, or there are two different phone numbers
the
listed.
inconsistencies.
It's a great way to very quickly get a sort of surface level look at how big of a cleanup project you might be dealing with. You might put this in and they're going to say, you know, very minor differences or none at all perhaps, although that's probably not as likely as there being inconsistencies out there. Something as simple as having street abbreviated as ST on one site and having it spelled out completely on another site can be enough to create an inconsistency.
And that will cause you problems, and that will cause you to possibly drop out of the 6-pack, 7-pack, 3-pack, whatever it is.
Potentially. You know, the abbreviation of street is an extreme example, but we encourage everybody to be, you know, as to the letter consistent as possible, because, you know, having inconsistencies in a phone number or a business name are going to be much more likely to have severe adverse effects on your local listing. But you can't rule out the possibility of even those very minor differences having a tangible effect as well.
And if you're missing from that local pack, your competition is not missing from that local pack. Right?
If you're not there, somebody else is.
Right, exactly.
And keep in mind, it's not just recently if you changed a name or an address or a phone number. This can be years ago. If years ago your firm split up or you added a new partner and you changed your firm name or your business name, or you moved offices, which most businesses have done at some point or another, it's entirely likely that you've got a lot of incorrect listings out there from years and years ago. You may not even realize addresses you could have forgotten you ever had. So most businesses have some kind of issue here.
Yeah, and that's actually a great segue into this next section here. The first place is you should stop and look if you're interested in cleaning up all of these inconsistencies. We've listed 4 here that you may not have heard of before. You know, most people have heard of the Yellow Pages website, the Better Business Bureau, Google+, the Yahoo directory. What isn't always clear to business owners and to consumers is that all of those sites gather their information from these 4 major data aggregates. This is sort of the root of, I don't want to say the problem, but the root of the system if we go back to that web that we were looking at.
The root of the solution, actually.
There you go. I like that, Danielle. But so if you have errors in these databases here, they're going to be propagated everywhere else. And it's easier to fix it here and let it disseminate out across the web than to go to every branch of the system and try and fix them individually. And as Danielle said, some of these errors can have existed for many years. Axicom and Infogroup scan not just the web, but all sorts of publicly available information, previously filed tax returns. Once they become public domain, that's one example that we came across not too long ago of how somebody's home address from 25 years ago when they were operating out of their basement got listed on some citation source online 25 years later.
Right.
It's because they're scanning and scraping sources of data that nobody ever realized or even anticipated would be part of the equation. And that's just an illustration of how wide-ranging the reach can be online and how vigilant you need to be to make sure that you stay on top of these things.
Right, you need to continue to maintain it. It's just not a one-time fix.
Even if you check it once, you can develop issues later. It's entirely possible that they find new sources of data to scrape.
Yeah.
What is this?
Well, beyond those, if you update all 4 of those, you're going to be in a pretty good spot, but it still takes time to, like I said, disseminate all of that information out from those root sources. You can, in the meantime, be working on updating any inconsistencies on some of these, much more familiar, forward-facing sites that people are probably familiar with. I mentioned a couple of them already. We have 7 listed here. These are all great options, great first places to look once you get past these sort of behind-the-scenes major data aggregators. Yellow Pages has, for quite some time been a very popular online directory source, as well as, prior to being online, just a great directory source in paper as well. Super Pages serves very much the same purpose. Merchant Circle is a little more locally driven. You can create a profile for free. They also have a premium listing option if that's something you're interested in. And the rest are all very much the same: Manta, eLocal, and then local.botw, which stands for Best of the Web, allows a free local listing for anybody who would like one. You can either, and this is the same for all of these, a lot of times if you go searching for your information, you'll find that you already have profiles on these sites, and that could raise a red flag if you're unaware. Okay, who's out here creating profiles on Manta.com for me? I've never heard of this site. Who's out there doing this? Is it a competitor? Is somebody trying to, hurt me in some way? And that's typically not the case. It's because those major data aggregators from the last slide are publishing this information or making that information available. These sources here collect that information in an attempt to populate their own databases, build up the size and authority of their own sites, and if those inconsistencies exist, they go unabated until somebody comes around looking to correct them. So always look for existing profiles first. You can always claim them and then make any updates that you need to. Definitely do not create a duplicate if at all possible. It can be sometimes difficult to avoid, but you should, under almost all circumstances, claim an existing profile rather than create a new one.
That is a good point. And let's talk about this on this next slide, because we've seen a lot of clients get themselves in trouble by working with several different SEO companies
at once.
Who are claiming profiles without knowing the other one is doing it, and creating duplicate problems. And ultimately, that has to get undone, and it's harder to get it undone than...
It's much more difficult to undo it than it is to do it correctly costly. The first time.
Right.
You can, in a situation like that, you could have the left hand not talking to the right hand as far as either claiming profiles or creating profiles go. Best case, you're competing with yourself. You have one profile of yours that's outperforming the other for whatever reason. Worst case, Google can suspend one or both of the listings because they're duplicates. They're not in the business of showing more information than is necessary that may confuse end users. So they can just stop showing them until you resolve the duplicity offline.
And plus, some of these kinds of companies that we've seen set up their own tracking phone numbers and whatnot in these, and that can hose you up too, because it creates inconsistency. You might have the right address, but their phone number that they are tracking. And so for those of you that don't want to put all your eggs in one basket or are distrustful of your current provider, you are really find a different provider if you're distrustful, because you are doing yourself a greater disservice that will cost you a lot more money and time and business in the long run by trying to do it sneaky. That's like a lawyer working on a case finding out, like right before trial, that there's another lawyer that's been working on the same case, or a doctor that operated on somebody only to have somebody else go right afterwards and undo their work. So you've got to be very careful about that.
We had a client in California. They had 4 different offices, and they hired a different SEO company for each office. So now you have different logins for all these profiles. They were not optimized the same way. It was an absolute mess, and we had to help them clean it up, and it took months and months. It was just a disaster. But they thought they were doing, hey, let's see who does the best job. No, don't think that way. You need to have things be consistent under one provider.
Just like you guys, the lawyers and doctors on the phone, I mean, you're not going to have anybody else. If you sign a client with your case, unless you are coaching the team of lawyers, unless you have control over it, you don't know what else they're doing, so they could be hurting your case. It's no different here. If you're working with a web company or you're doing it in-house, however you're doing it, having other third-party companies messing with your profile can do you a world of disservice and hurt and take months to clean up while you lose that business. So be very careful. Okay, so what are the key points here?
We've hit them pretty hard already, but they bear repeating. It's accuracy, consistency, and thoroughness. It's Most of these profiles at bare minimum allow you to list a business name, an address, a phone number, perhaps a link to your website. But most of them also have some sort of about us or bio section. By all means, fill that out. Be as thorough as possible. If you have a 5,000 character limit for that about us section, don't put in, we're a law firm in Chicago.
Don't be lazy.
Yeah.
Right.
You've got an opportunity there to sell yourself, and you're missing that opportunity if you're not taking it.
You're going to get what you give. If you just do minimal effort, you're going to get minimal return with this. You have the opportunity in each one of these directories to be as robust as you can with the content that's put out there that is available to you, like AVO, and for doctors, for lawyers. Take advantage of all that. Better Business Bureau, take advantage of all this. Now, what do we mean here in number 4? So about do not abuse anchor text. It's a good point.
Yeah, you should always take advantage of the ability to link back to your website when it's presented to you, especially on a free profile, because not all of them are going to give you that. However, you can harm yourself long term. You can harm your site's online presence and visibility if you abuse the anchor text. The anchor text is the clickable text of a link. You can see the image we have here. It says click here. How many times do you see text that's linked that says click here? It is one of the most common anchor texts used online, but that's not really what we mean by abuse. Here we mean utilizing that anchor text to say something like Los Angeles personal injury attorney, Los Angeles car accident attorney. That is not going to be a great driver of authority from that link from the external domain to your site, and it will create an unnatural looking backlink profile if you have links from dozens or perhaps hundreds of sites from around the web who all for some reason decided to link to you using the term Los Angeles personal injury attorney. That used to be a great way to drive traffic and build authority for that particular keyword phrase, but that is no longer the case.
And that can hurt you these days.
Yeah, and it absolutely will. It's not a can, it's a will.
Yes.
So if you have the ability in these profiles to customize your anchor text, just make it your firm name. That's never going to count against you if you just link with the name of your firm. A lot of them don't even allow you to customize the anchor text. It'll just be view website or just the URL itself. But if you do have the opportunity, just make it the firm name.
We have a couple quick questions, Jamie, and just a reminder, if anybody has a question, you can go ahead and type it into the GoToWebinar question box, and we'll answer that for you. We were asked, will listing phone numbers in different formats, for example, putting the area code in parentheses versus having all dashes between the numbers, be enough to generate a NAP inconsistency?
It can, and we encourage everybody to be as consistent as possible down to the letter if possible. But compared to other more significant inconsistencies like differences in firm names or addresses or different digits in the phone number, whether or not your preference for dashes versus parentheses probably isn't going to hurt you too much, but for the sake of accuracy, we encourage everybody to just be as consistent as humanly possible.
I think some of the more sophisticated sites have no issue with parentheses versus dashes or street versus ST, but there are some more archaic sites out there, so all the more reason to be careful. We have another question which you are going to touch on in a later slide, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it. What do you advise for solo practitioners? So many have listings for the attorney and then listings for the firm, but if you're a solo, you're kind of the same person. And is it okay to have a listing for both the individual and the firm, or is that inconsistent or unnecessary?
You are allowed, and in most cases we encourage people to have listings for both the firm and individual practitioners, and this applies for doctors as well as attorneys. Even in the case of you're a one-man show, you can still represent yourself as a firm on the left, and on the right have a separate profile listing you as sort of the individual, Joe Schmo, attorney at law, owning partner of Joe Schmo law firm. We are going to go in a little more detail about this. There are a few key points to remember, but in a nutshell, yes, you are, and in most cases should have both the firm profile as well as individual profiles.
Let me ask another question. Yext, if you use Yext, do they do it all and it's on automatic pilot, or do you still need to go to Factual and Axicom and all these other places we've talked about?
So they will do it all, and I'm going to put an asterisk on do it all because it's not quite all. But if you go there and enter your information, it'll run this check and show you, oh, look at all these errors. We will be more than happy to fix it for you for this low, low price. And depending on the size of the cleanup project, it can be absolutely worth it sometimes to pay for the premium service that they offer and allow them to help you take care of it. It can be a great time saver in correcting a lot of these listings. I would, however, it is not set and forget. It's not a one-time deal. I would encourage people to still go to Factual and Axicom and the other major data aggregators, make sure everything is correct as possible there. And then also just maintain vigilance within Yext if that's the service that you're using. Check back in periodically. Some of these sites take more time than others to update their own records. You want to stay on top of these things and make sure that they're actually getting updated when they say they are.
Great, thank you. So these are some of the local profiles that you recommend folks claim and update, and this is probably one of the most important, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Google loves to tell us how big their Google Plus network is. I'm not entirely sure how much it gets used as the social network they intended it to originally, but if you want to show up in Google's local search results, having a Google Plus / Google My Business profile is is essential. You're not going to show up in Google local results if you don't have a local profile. And here's what we were talking about a little bit ago. There have been some pretty significant changes to the quality guidelines, and they call them guidelines, but they're really rules. Don't take them as optional. There have been, like I said, some updates made to these guidelines as far as how profiles can be named. In the past, if you had multiple locations, if you had offices, several offices in one city or offices in multiple cities, you could, and were encouraged to under Google's guidelines, name them, Foster Web Marketing, Fairfax headquarters, Foster Web Marketing, San Francisco satellite office, or whatever the case may be. That is no longer the case. They've sort of done an about-face on this. They say that now you should, under no circumstances, list that ancillary information. They should all the names of your profiles in multiple locations should just be the firm name, Joe Schmo Law Firm, LLC, whatever the case may be. You do not need to and should not append that location information to the name. The address itself will be enough to distinguish the profiles. One other major change on the profile pages is that while in the past you were encouraged to use as many relevant categories for your business as possible, they are saying now that you should use as few relevant categories as possible, one, maybe two in most cases. So if you're a personal injury attorney, just use personal injury attorney as your category on Google+. Don't also use lawyer, trial attorney. Those are the three that we usually see overlapping a lot in the case of personal injury guys. But however, if you do multiple practice areas, if you're a personal injury attorney and you also do family law or bankruptcy law, list as many as are relevant and unique, but it's no longer necessary and no longer encouraged to make use of those sort of overlapping profiles. If there's only one practice area you make use of, find the most specific and most relevant one and stick to that.
So these rules are always changing. It's pretty frustrating for everybody. And Google doesn't send you a packet and let you know. It just does it. So how does somebody keep up with all these changes?
It can be difficult if you're not, if you're not following the industry. There's not really any way you would know necessarily.
Subscribe to our newsletter.
Right. Well, we try to stay updated. That's where I was going, Jamie. So we put out a lot of content on our site. As everyone knows, we're very education-based, and we want to educate you on doing a good job. So we put out this information when we know it, and we're constantly staying involved. But we got a little link down here, right? Danielle, what is this for?
This is a link to a blog post from Local U, which is a organization. It's a group of individuals who are really experts in their field, experts in local search, and they get together and they do a lot of educational programming, and they've got a great blog here all about optimizing for Google Plus for business.
Yeah, that article is extremely comprehensive. It answers practically any question you could come up with about Google Plus Local in particular.
So if you guys have questions about that, of course, we'll be sending these slides out, and you'll have this link that you can check out more information.
We have a question about this. Should you put personal injury lawyer and motorcycle accident lawyer? Are those different enough categories?
I would say probably yes in most cases.
Well, this categories that Google provides, or do you have to create them?
Google provides the categories.
I know
now.
those
So
specific ones.
I know for a fact personal injury attorney is. I don't know off the top of my head whether or not motorcycle accident attorney is. So if they are both Google provided categories, they may be distinct enough because personal injury can apply to obviously many more things than just the motorcycle accidents. That would probably be okay provided that those two are actually unique categories provided by Google.
So provided by Google, that was my question, is what is, you can still create your own categories, correct?
No.
Oh, you can't do that?
No, they changed that too.
So there you go.
So yeah, it can be tricky sometimes.
Glad I'm on this webinar.
Everybody learns something, right? But no, that's a fairly recent change as well. So you used to be able to type in whatever you wanted as your category. They used to, I think, make you choose one of their suggested primary categories, but then as secondary categories you could list whatever you wanted, but that's no longer the case either. So it can be a sort of Easter egg hunt trying to find whether or not the categories you want to be showing for are actually supported by Google. So they do force your hand a little bit when categorizing your business, but there are trial attorney, lawyer, personal injury attorney, family attorney, bankruptcy attorney, are just a handful that I can think of off the top of my head that I know are supported, but there are many others as well too. Don't be afraid to try as many as you think is necessary to find the one that's most relevant to you.
Okay, thank you. Just learned something new.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is this? These are other profiles that are not Google.
Other local profiles, they all operate in more or less the same way as Google Plus's does. Yahoo's small business directory is being discontinued. You may have, if you had an active small business listing on Yahoo, you've probably gotten emails about how the small business directory is going away. They are maintaining the local directory, however, so you want to, if you don't already, make sure that your information is accurate and consistent on Yahoo as well as elsewhere. Bing local, same story. Bing's market share grows every year. It cannot be ignored as a player within the search arena, and its accuracy and consistency. These are just the first places you should be looking as you go down the list. These are the obvious ones to check off before you get into some of the lesser known areas as well. YouTube is going to be handled by your Google Plus profile. However, the channel, if you're publishing video content regularly, and you should, your channel also allows you to list, it has an About Us section. You can list name, address, and phone number information there as well. Facebook is, pretty self-evident at this point. If you don't have a Facebook profile, you probably should. If for no other reason, then name, address, phone number, and you can also get a link from them to your website. We already mentioned
Business listing.
Correct.
Facebook business listing.
Yes, don't just drop your business name information into your personal profile, but create a page for your business if you haven't already.
So can I ask a question about that?
Of course.
Because if you're doing it right, you've got your business page with Facebook, and that name, address, and phone number needs to be consistent. But what about your own personal profile? Like I have Tom Foster and you have Jamie.
Yeah.
I can have my home address there or whatever, and that's not going to mess with anything?
If you want to put your home address on Facebook, go right ahead, I guess. But that's not necessarily what I would recommend. But not for the reasons we're discussing here. Well,
I'll just hide it from you, Jamie.
All right. So that's an interesting question. I hadn't considered it from that standpoint. You could, if you were using your personal Facebook profile as another megaphone for your business, the About Me section of your personal profile could say, I'm Tom Foster, CEO of Foster Web Marketing, located here, call me at this number, that sort of thing. I'm not sure there would be enough people willing to put their home address and phone number.
Well, I just don't. Well, that's what I'm saying is, like we want to be clear when we're saying Facebook that we're talking about the business listing.
Yes.
And Yext.
We talked about briefly already, but can be a great way to take care of a lot of these all at once. If you pay for the premium Yext listing, it can solve a lot of issues in a lot of places.
We do have a couple quick Yext questions, so I wanted to bring that up. Does their work stay after you stop paying for their service? It's a very common concern.
It is supposed to. We have seen mixed results, I'll say, but generally positive.
I believe the issue is that Yext maintains a lock on the accounts, and once they take that lock off, if you stop paying, then bad data out there in the universe can affect your listings. Something like that is their excuse?
One thing that they offer that they don't advertise a lot is duplicate suppression. So if you pay just the, whatever they offer you on the front page for Yext, they'll claim the one profile that they're able to claim on all these sites and update it so all that information is accurate. What they don't do at that base level is anything regarding duplicate listings on those external sites. If there's more than one listing with your business name out there on any one site, they're only going to claim one of them and maintain that information. There's an additional sort of upcharge that you can pay for that added duplicate suppression, and that suppression obviously ends if your payments to Yext end.
And are there some concerns that Yext can actually create duplicates and cause more issues for you if you're not careful?
That's always a concern, especially if there are a lot of duplicates out there already. You would probably want to look into it from a couple different angles on your own before jumping in with both feet with Yext, just so you know sort of exactly what sort of problem you're getting into.
And I mean, like, you can have problems with any kind of automation. So you want to, like what you were saying, is using Yext kind of as a notification, an alert if you have an issue, but actually go to the place yourself and fix it there directly instead of doing everything through Yext.
Yeah, and I usually look at it from an efficiency standpoint. If we're looking at a major project cleaning up duplicate listings and inconsistencies in dozens of places across the web, it's going to take months to clean up. Yext can be a great way to expedite that process. If you're just dealing with a handful of, oh, our phone number changed 2 years ago and it's the old one's still floating around out there in 1 or 2 places, not necessarily worth the money required for Yext. Can be still beneficial if that's the route you want to go, but it's a question of cost and efficiency.
And so Yext is about, what, $500 a year? That's the license?
Baseline, I think.
Something like that.
4 to 5.
Just so everybody knows. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Other things that you should update on your profiles? Jamie, explain this.
Yeah, and we touched on some of this already a little bit earlier, but you want to be thorough in your use of these profiles as you're claiming them. It can seem like a lot of work, and it is, but that's what it takes to be successful in sort of anything that you undertake like this. But you should always check for unclaimed listings first, because if you don't, they may be out there, and then you've just created a duplicate. If you're able to claim these unclaimed listings that are out there, most of these places are more than happy to hand these profiles over to the business owners. They want them to be correct as well, too. So if you come knocking asking to take control of it, they may want to call you on your business number to just verify that you are, in fact, the business owner. But claiming these profiles is usually pretty straightforward. Same thing with deleting duplicates. In most cases, if you already have one claimed listing, you can contact via email or phone the customer service department of these various sites and say, hey, I'm the owner of, profile X, but I noticed that there's a duplicate over here, number Y. We can, what can we do? We can either merge the two or delete the outdated one, delete the incorrect one. They're usually more than happy to help you. Beyond that, though, it's just like I said, being thorough. You want to pick the correct, most relevant categories. Always upload pictures and videos if you're able to. Don't skimp on the description. Really take some time and be unique on as many of these as possible. I know it can be hard to describe yourself differently on a dozen or more different websites, but at the very least, do not just copy and paste whatever the About Me section on your website says. That's not going to help anything either.
Garbage in and garbage out. It's the more that you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it, which is what the point we made before.
And Danielle, did you?
I just want to say it can be hard to keep track of all these different sites. I mean, how do you know if you go to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 different sites and update them manually? We always recommend you keep a spreadsheet at the very least.
Oh, yeah. You'll never remember all those passwords. the date last checked is a great thing to keep track of as well too, and we're going to talk about sort of regular maintenance as well, but it should be on your mind, at least it should be easy to see the last time that you made an update to some of that information.
So up till now we've been talking about free directories.
Mm-hmm.
So what is this, paid directories? What does this mean?
Most of these other options that we've been going through already have paid directory options for you. You can, in most cases, claim the free listing without any trouble, and then then the emails start coming in offering to upgrade to the paid directories. And whether or not these are worth it is a matter of your own personal tastes, as well as perhaps your budgetary restrictions as well. We have several clients who have been thrilled with the ROI they've gotten from some of their paid directories. We have many others that have tried it, and it just did not turn out to be as successful for them as they had hoped. It can be a little hit or miss depending on your practice areas in particular or your geographical region. But if paid directories are something you're interested in, there are a few that we typically find to be better than others.
Hold on, guys. I'm having a little bit of a
technical. You want to stop showing it for me?
Connie, I need you to pull it back and give it back to me again. Pardon me, guys. All righty.
There we go.
Woo, go-to meeting. Thank you. All right, let's keep going.
All right.
Sorry about that.
So yeah, right here, there are a couple general paid directories, and we found that these three in particular tend to be affordable and also offer pretty good presence, for the price that you pay. Best of the Web is a very authoritative web directory. It's been around forever as far as the internet goes, and can be a great place to get a backlink to your website from. The cost for the Best of the Web listing is probably worth it just for the backlink alone. It's a very authoritative source, and even if it doesn't, regardless of other tangible benefits that you get from it, it's worth it for probably just the link alone. The other two, same story for the most part. Danielle. And
Danielle misspelled ezillion, so forgive me. Ezillion only has one L there in number 1, just like the logo. And we do have a question. Are paid directories worth doing for SEO purposes alone?
Sort of like what I said for Best of the Web. In some cases, and this is not going to be the general case, but few and far between exceptions, the paid directories may be worth it just for the link itself. But that, whether or not that is going to be worth it depends on your taste for spending money. What one person deems worth it, another may not. So that, to a certain extent, will be a personal preference. But as a general rule, I would say no. The paid directories should not be viewed as simply an SEO tool. They can be a great way to augment an already well-established online local presence, but should not be viewed as a sort of shortcut to getting around the rest of this stuff.
Is it something you should check and see if your competitors are listed on these directories, and then you might be missing out if you're not there as well?
That's always worth looking into. You don't want to be the only one in the room without a paid listing necessarily. If that's what it takes to compete with the people you've deemed your competitors, then that may be the case.
And for our attorney friends, we actually have a great article on our website, the link's here at the bottom of the screen, that has more information about the paid directories that you recommend. And we also have detailed articles that link from that page about Avo and Justia. So here are the ones that our team recommends, right, Jamie?
Yeah. First places to look if you're an attorney for paid listings. You should already have the free listings on all of these sites. But if you find yourself interested in exploring paid directory opportunities, these are the first places I would look. FindLaw has a very authoritative directory, and you can absolutely increase your presence very quickly by just writing a check. The same is true for Avo and Justia. Martindale itself informs several other attorney directories across the web. You want to make sure absolutely that your information is correct there, even if you opt not for the paid directory. But these things disseminate out from the root sources, and Martindale is one of them within the attorney arena. And then hg.org and nolo.com, same story. Make sure your free profiles are accurate. If you're interested in paid directories, these are great places to look first.
And these are great sites to check out even if you're not considering the paid. For example, Avo is pretty good at SEO, and if you're an attorney and you look up your own name, you may find your Avo listing, whether you want it to or not, is going to rank pretty high on page 1. So that's definitely something you want to pay attention to.
That's the added benefit of the paid directories for these sites, or for these directories in particular, is they rank very highly for a lot of these terms that most of our clients want to be ranking highly for. It's going to be very difficult for a small to medium-sized law firm to outrank the domain authority that FindLaw or Avo bring to the table. And if you're not going to uproot the page that's outranking you at number 1, what can you do to get on the page that's number 1? If that page is Avo, then you need to be on Avo. And who's showing up at the top of Avo? And if a paid listing is what you need to outrank, your competitor from across town, then that's an avenue worth exploring.
And we recommend it. We recommend spending, budgeting some money for these guys.
As part of the process, yeah.
Right.
Not everybody's going to have that money right out of the gate, but it is something we recommend to consider at least.
At the very least, like you were saying, just make sure your free listing is updated. And keep in mind some of the sites like FindLaw, you won't show up in their directory list if you only have a free listing. You only show up in the directory if you're paid, so there's some nuances.
Doesn't mean the NAP information isn't important, though.
And these are doctor paid directories that we recommend?
Yeah, same thing. Health Grades is the number 1 pretty much, is from any way you slice it, pretty much Health Grades tends to be the most authoritative online directory for doctors. But ratemds.com is also very strong. ZocDoc is cool because you can book appointments as well. We would encourage all of our doctor clients to explore that opportunity, look into it a little more, see how that could help out your business. It's very easy to integrate that information into our system as well. And then the rest of these all serve pretty much the same purpose, Doctor Directory and bestdoctors.com. You want to make sure that your name, address, and phone number is accurate and consistent, like we've been saying. And then finally, Medicare.gov. The .gov link is generally very authoritative, and that's a very strong place to make sure that your information is presented correctly.
And once again, for the reason we already said, why do you want to participate in these? Is because these guys are working hard and spending money and their resources to get ranked for your name.
Yeah.
And so the point is that if someone, look, it's still a referral business. The internet just helps that referral out. If I'm looking for a doctor or a lawyer, I'm going to ask my friend or family member, and they're going to say, give me a name or a firm name, and I'm going to turn around, I'm going to go to Google or whatever and search. And these guys also will come up beside your own website. So you want to be there. You want to have as many good reviews, and once again, we'll talk about reviews and how to do that next month. But you want to be seen in all these places and take advantage of whatever profile opportunity they provide you.
The danger lies in not knowing where else you're listed.
Right.
If you don't know that Health Grades has your phone number wrong, who knows how many missed opportunities have passed you by.
Right. Okay. So we're almost done here, and so one of our last slides. How often should you check this, Jamie?
As often as possible.
Well, every day. I mean, we're talking. Everybody on this webinar is very busy. We're very busy here, so. How often do we check for our clients?
I would want to take at least a cursory glance at the top level ones, the big ones that we covered at the beginning, monthly. I mean, that may not be possible for everybody given your time constraints, but the longer you go without looking at it, the longer anything that's cropped up in the meantime will have gone undiagnosed.
And the longer it'll take you to clean up. So it's better just to do the preventive maintenance once a month. So that's what you're recommending.
Yeah, just open
for the top ones.
Yeah, open your Google Plus profile. Make sure you didn't accidentally change something or delete something. Go to Yellow Pages, go to Super Pages, White Pages, any of these others that we've listed here, and just read it real quick.
And sometimes stuff disappears. Like our own Google Plus listing disappeared one day, and it's not that we did anything wrong. It's that other stuff gets broken. Hey, websites break. What was it? The Apple Store was down for like 12 hours the other day. You know, like Facebook goes down, Twitter goes down, Google goes down. So you want to make sure that everything is working for you out there. You have to do your own due diligence.
Yeah,
okay.
You spend 5 or 10 minutes a month just checking on things. Saves a lot of time long term.
Yeah. We got any other questions over there, Danielle? We cover all our questions.
I think we answered them, but we did look into the question about Google Plus and if there is a different category for motorcycle accident or car accident. It's just personal injury, so just to answer that,
okay.
Clear that up.
Very good.
Otherwise, I don't think we have any more questions, so.
Okay, so as Danielle, we have recorded all our webinars and we keep them at fwm.tips, right?
Absolutely.
So if you want to review all the other ones that we've done, and we've got tons back there, go check it out. Those are just free resources for you.
Yeah, you can scan through the titles and see the different topics. We have a wide variety of marketing topics, and you can watch the webinar, or you can also just look at the slides. A lot of the slides are very informational, and you can just click through quickly to get an idea of what's in there.
And want to know what's up with your website if you are concerned that your rankings have tanked for certain keywords, or if you feel like there's a problem, or your traffic or conversion. We'd be happy to give you an analysis at fwmanalysis.com. And then, as we said, the next step in our 10 Commandments is thou shalt create a sustainable review strategy. And this is a little trickier than you might think. And you don't want to cut corners because you can hurt yourself on this one too.
Also true. There's going to be a lot of overlap with the local profiles.
Yep.
Those local profiles are great places to begin cultivating these reviews.
You have to have your profile to get a review.
So everyone's homework is to spend the time between now and April 21st setting up all your local profiles so you'll be ready to go for reviews next month.
That's the way. Okay, everybody. Well, once again, April 21st, the next webinar that we'll have, thank you all for attending. Jamie and Danielle, thank you very much for putting this together for everybody.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Thanks to all of you for attending. And I hope you have a wonderful St. Patty's Day and eat your green eggs and drink your green beer. Take care.
In that order.
Bye-bye.